most influential women in tech by Big Think. She's written a couple of books that are just intriguing. Cathy, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for inviting me to be here.
So you're a futurist, and I think we all wonder. I mean, I'm looking for when my flying car is going to be in my driveway. Can you tell me what a futurist does? What's your job like?
Definitely. And the flying cars are coming, by the way. I will definitely say that. So it's interesting because when people hear the word futurist, they automatically think like someone with a crystal ball, right? That can tell them or predict the future. And futurists don't predict the future. We trade in uncertainty. What we do is we look at the weak signals. We look around corners in sort of way and try to figure out what could be the potential futures that lay ahead for a company, for an organization or a government. So it's a really interesting job in some ways. In futurism as a discipline, there's actually, there's a whole academic framework related to futurism. It's been taught at the University of Houston and the University of Hawaii for several decades now. So I always tell people that, like, it's not, I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd be on a private island next to Sir Richard Branson's. So it's not about predicting the future. It's about trying to make sense of uncertainty. And it seems that, it has never been more important than today.
I'd have to agree. I mean, we look at so much uncertainty, and I think there's risk and there's downside, but there's also upsides that shake things up a little bit, and people look at change differently than they have in the past.
Yeah, and I think it definitely, all this change and all this uncertainty makes people uncomfortable, but it also helps lead to change and acceleration of adoption of technologies that can make work better. It can make humanity better. So there's a lot of things to see in this time of turbulence that could lead to very positive outcomes.
Oh, without a doubt. So speaking of change, I know you joined Automation at Home this year, Automation Fair at Home this year. Can you tell me about some of the takeaways, some of the things you saw that were exciting and will change the world?
Yeah, I mean, I have to, I just kind of want to applaud you guys for doing such a great job with a virtual event, because that's just hard to do. And I had I had a great time. I walked the show floor, I walked the virtual show floor, and was able to kind of look at innovations and look at how, new things that are being developed that I didn't even have an idea about, which was really interesting. It takes a lot to impress me and surprise me, and you guys definitely did it. So hats off to you guys. But I would say that some of the highlights are twofold. I would say the talks, there were some brilliant discussions happening. I personally really enjoyed one of the keynotes with Dean Kamen talking about the work that you guys are doing with Army and, the potential, the beginning of large-scale manufacturing of human replacement organs. I thought that was just, critical. That is just amazing. And just of huge significance for humanity. So definitely, I was kind of in awe during that whole talk about how you guys are setting up those processes for this to eventually be a reality. So I thought that was really brilliant, and it ties very nicely into what I call the bio-digital convergence, or what many people call the bio-digital convergence. So thought that was brilliant. One of the reasons, Dave, that I thought it was interesting was because as a futurist, I get asked to look at the future of X. And one of the concepts was, for example, what is the future of driving? What's the future of autonomous vehicles? And if you start thinking through that, autonomous vehicles, there's going to be more safety on the road, and if there's more safety on the road, there's less deaths. But at the same time, a lot of people in the U.S. specifically depend on the organs from people that die in car crashes for replacement organs. So if we have safer streets and less accidents because of autonomous driving, then we have less organ transplants. So that's when I kind of, listened to Dean and kind of put two and two together. And I said, well, wow, that is a really interesting second or third order effect in this grand scheme of, what is the future of autonomous driving? So yeah, just kind of putting two and two together.
Yeah, that's an interesting. So you're looking at the effects that go down the stream. So even today, we're only maybe getting donors for 25% of the patients, and many of the people just don't make it off the list for the transplants. And that's really too bad. I love what Dean is doing, though. He's taking these brilliant research scientists who are great at producing something in a lab, and he's connecting them with automation experts that are great at scaling things and making things at high volumes and making that connection. Dean is just amazing at doing that and just so inspirational the way he approaches things.
Yeah. I also love seeing there was a kind of after one of the keynotes, another part of the keynote was you're the CEO of Rockwell Automation speaking with the CEO of PTC, Jim Heppelman, who I've met in person, and they were talking about augmented reality. And as you know, Dave, like that's one of my fortes. That's one of the disciplines that I've been working in for several years. And it was great to start to to hear augmented reality be front and center for for companies like Rockwell Automation, who's been doing things in AR and VR and automation for a while. But I just love hearing the term augmented reality in those types of conversations.
That's great that you talk about that because I mean, we've been doing augmented reality for a long time,
Mhm.
and we've been able to connect the workers and over these distances. And with a lot of things that have happened with the coronavirus, people are saying, can I do more remotely? And augmented reality is just such a match for that. I know in your second book, you talk about the augmented workforce. And I think it really perfectly aligns with our brand promise of expanding human possibility. How do you see technologies like XR and AR and VR augmenting our current workers and our future workers?
So I see AR and VR in two different ways. First, the now. For the now, I believe AR is allowing workers to be able to upskill a lot faster, be able to reskill or start working, from day one, because they're able to put on a headset and they're able to follow instructions. So in some ways, it's like giving them superpowers. I mean, I know it sounds a little cliche, but is augmenting the worker. It's technology that in its essence is complementary to working. And I think that that is very powerful when we think about that. And I think further, if we think further long term, I think the possibilities that AR and VR are going to allow, for the workers to be educated in a totally different way. It's going to allow for access to, I always joke and I say, if my kids, now that they're learning virtually, if they could have put on a VR headset and learned chemistry from Marie Curie or, physics from Albert Einstein and get access to the best, the best minds in this world, wouldn't that be great? And I think that AR and VR is going to allow us and give us that possibility of access to, the greatest minds.
I love the way you phrase that, accompanying the workers, because this isn't technology that puts workers out of jobs. This is technology that really provides workers with expertise, and it may be AI, it may be an expert at the other end, it may be a combination too, where it's difficult to tell which, but it is really helping those workers to do their best to be able to train faster as we have new generations entering in and scaling up quicker. I love the way you phrase that.
Yeah. And I think it's also powerful because with AR and even VR, you can retain some of the information from the workers that are leaving, the workers that are retiring. So when the younger workers come in, they have access to this, let's say, call it tribal knowledge of sorts of, a process that's been done by someone for 20 years. They're able to kind of watch that, that digital representation or the digital guidance and be able to kind of get to that level a lot faster and for the company to be able to retain that information, I mean, that is so powerful.
I'm anxious to see if that will change the retention trends as
Mhm.
well. If you have somebody that is the expert in the field, maybe they're traveling all over the world,
Yeah.
helping to solve problems with oil rigs, and they're just ready. They're tired. They're tired of traveling. Could they sit in their home and maybe work 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week and be the expert and help people around the world? How will that actually change the way we work? And or people that have problems with mobility, they could actually still sit at home and have that impact as if they're right there.
Yeah. I just did a talk with the Department of Labor here in the US, talking about the 30-year anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the whole conversation that they had with me as a futurist was, what do these technologies allow people with disabilities to do? And I said, well, it opens up a whole world of avenues and possibilities to be able to do works that, jobs that they weren't able to do before. So yeah, so I think accessibility and access, I think, are critical, and I think they're very powerful, a very powerful part of these technologies.
Oh, without a doubt. And that really does
Yeah.
expand human possibility. So
Mhm.
maybe to shift gears a little bit, we partner with ANSYS, the world leader in simulation. We have Emulate 3D software, and we're seeing digital twins really truly becoming practical and delivering value for our customers. So how do you see digital twins and AR driving change? And what does this future multiverse look like?
So I'm excited about this part because I do see this, this one-to-one copy of the world, right? And there's a digital layer to our reality, and this kind of convergence of the physical and the digital coming together. And when people ask me, why is that important? I said, well, the world in some way becomes machine readable and searchable, so eventually humans will meet the machines in that world and we'll be seeing the same things, right? From moving from our cell phones to our glasses, and then eventually whatever comes next. So I think that that'll be very powerful, and it'll change the way we engage with content. And here's a clear example, because everyone hears that and they're like, well, what does that mean? So if you think from a digital twin perspective and physical and digital converging, if you're able to create a digital twin of a patient, with organs and everything, it's a digital physical replica of that person. And you're able to see what could potentially happen if you tried a treatment that hasn't been tried before, or a specific type of, of treatment plan, and you try it on the digital surrogate or the digital double. You're able to see in some ways what could potentially happen to the real patient. So I think that that is where this technology becomes powerful. If you're able to do that on a digital twin before doing it on a real human, you're going to avoid human error. You're going to avoid potential dangers, and so on and so on. I think that it's just incredibly powerful technology. In Yeah, I mean, in some ways I think it's going to change the way we interact with technology, and allow us to do things in a better, more humane way, if you mind. So.
What a great example. I love the example of a digital
Mhm.
twin of a person. You think about genetic differences and be able to
Mhm.
tailor treatments, and the more you know to build up that knowledge of what's worked for people, what hasn't worked for people, so that that digital twin becomes a living replica
Mhm.
of that person, and you're able to provide the best treatments going forward. That is a fantastic example.
Thank you.
Kathy, anything that I didn't ask you about automation fair that you'd like to tell us? Anything more that you'd like to share as far as change for the future?
Yeah, so I think one interesting thing that I've kind of come across is when I speak to people about strategic foresight and futurism, and kind of the discipline of what I do as a futurist, is really embracing it more as futures intelligence, right? So thinking through, what are the emerging trends? How can I use emerging technology? What are the weak signals? And how can I put all of this together to better prepare for long-term strategic planning, better prepare for potential futures? And I think that there's a lot of potential there. I mean, if you Dave yourself are in some way, shape, or form a futurist, right? You've been working in these technologies for a long time. You understand and you see the long game, right? But I don't think that everyone in corporate America does that, and I think we need that in order to, in order for companies to stay relevant, to better understand what to do when there's uncertainty. And I would even dare to say, in some ways, that futures intelligence, in some way, is the next emotional intelligence of sorts. So, yeah, I think that, understanding what Rockwell Automation is doing, understanding, what are these new technologies and things that are coming down the line, can really have an impact and can really help people better prepare for the future.
I love that thought. Futures intelligence is the new emotional intelligence. That's a fantastic observation. Kathy, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. It's an honor talking to you. Thank you.
An honor as well. Thank you, Dave.